Oh my god, dude, I did not let up.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today's video is going to be a little different. We're going to be doing a cost breakdown analysis of my Jeep rock crawler behind me. Now this is in no way, shape, or form me trying to like brag, you know, or anything like that. If anything, I'm a little ashamed of it, to be honest. But you know how it is. This is my hobby, my life. It slowly, paycheck by paycheck, builds up to a pretty crazy amount. I've got like 6 pages of parts here that I'm going to go over. We're going to go through every single little part in detail that I can think of to get you an accurate representation of what it costs to build something like this. This is probably the most requested question that I get in my DMs and comments. You know, I'm sure half of them are people being like, what in the world, why would someone spend so much money? And then the other half the people are probably genuinely curious because they want to build something like this for themselves. So this is for those people. You know, if you are planning to build a, you know, real dedicated rock crawler, or, you know, have a Jeep yourself and you're curious what it's going to take to get to this level, this will be enlightening for you, I think, because I don't think people will realize the commitment it takes. If you just happen to be my wife or my parents, or, you know, my parent-in-laws or my grandparents or my boss, you can just turn the video off now. You don't need to see this. Before we get going on today's video, I want to take a quick second to talk about today's video sponsor, IHood. So you see this jacket that I'm wearing. This is a heated jacket from IHood. This company sent this out to me, as well as a vest for my wife, and I gotta say I'm in love with it. This has become my go-to jacket. I wear this pretty much every day. If you know me, you know that I'm always cold. I'm the guy who sits under a blanket and has the heater cranked all year round. So having a heated coat is something I wanted for a long time, but I could never quite justify the cost of the big name ones, you know. These iHoods are very affordable, and they are really nice quality. I was pleasantly surprised with the quality. The batteries last 3.5 hours on high, 5 hours on medium, and 7 hours on low. So that's pretty good battery life, because on high, let me tell you, it's almost too hot. Like I'll run it on high and then I'll turn it off because I get too hot, and then turn it back on later. But that's where their auto mode comes in handy. So you can see the it's flashing right now. That means it's on auto, so it actually changes the temperature based on, you know, how long it's been on and stuff. And that seems to be the ticket for me. The other cool part is it's got multiple different sections that are heated. So it's got your neck, your front pockets, your back, and you can turn them all on individually or at different temperatures, which is really cool too. So you can just cycle through them: high, medium, low, high, medium, low, just by clicking this button, and it's all lit up to tell you which mode you're on, which is really cool. And it does get incredibly warm. Like, it gets up to, let's see, what do they claim? 122 degrees Fahrenheit to 158 degrees Fahrenheit, and I believe it. Like I said, it gets incredibly toasty. Another really cool feature that I didn't think was possible is it's actually machine washable. So you can just wash this in your washing machine. All you gotta do is just take the battery out before you do it and zip up the pocket, and you can wash it like any regular old coat, which is crazy. And it's totally waterproof. So anyways, huge shout out to iHood. If you guys want one of these jackets or vests, they got a nice line of different options. I'll have a link in the description with a discount code, and you can get one for yourself. Thanks, iHood. All right, so back to business. Let's get started on this cost breakdown thing. So I guess to start is just the Jeep in general. You have to buy a Jeep to build a Jeep, right? So I bought mine bone stock, totally a mess. It didn't have any axles. Actually, not. It had blown up axles, had a blown tranny, the motor didn't run, the fuel pump was all tore apart, and it was pretty haggard and rough looking. I paid $200 for that bad boy, clean title. And believe it or not, I found a 20 under the front seat, so that paid for an eighth of it. Math is hard. I should also mention that this is going to be a rough estimate. I mean, every single part that I wanted to put on the list, I did Google and find what today's market price for that is. Unless it was something that I bought used on the marketplace, like the axles or something, then I put what I paid for that. But as far as all of the brand new parts, keep in mind that I do get stuff at a huge discount. My dad owns an off-road shop, XCC Truck and Toy in Hood River. If you haven't heard of them, go check them out. So I do get things at cost. So this isn't necessarily what I paid, but this is just what it would cost to build this Jeep. All right, so let's start at the rear axle because it's right here in front and nice and easy to see. So this is a 14 bolt out of a GM 1-ton truck. I picked this up used on the marketplace, totally bare, for $100. It's got G2 538 gears. Those were $300. It's got a Yukon install gear kit for $200. And then the locker is just the welded diff. Nice and free, baby, saving money. The gear install, so that's the one thing that I don't do is install my own gears. I do have that done professionally, and that was $400. This Artec 14 bolt truss, the combo truss and pinion guard, that kit is $580. This diff cover and shave kit from Ballistic Fab, that's a big one, $658. Wow. The disc brake conversion, because you don't want the drums, they're big and heavy, you want it to stop and be as light as possible because these things are already boat anchors. That is a rough stuff disc brake conversion for $365. It's also got a forged U-bolt style 1350 yoke from Wide Open Designs. That is $142. And then new bearings, we'll put that at $200. So that puts the grand total for a 14 bolt to be built at $2,943. Alright, on to the front axle. This is the big one. This one hurts. So this is a high pinion Ford Dana 60. It's out of a 93 Ford F350, so it's a 1-ton Ford truck. These are ball joint 60s, so they're not the Kingpin 60, which I think I actually prefer at this point because they're so much easier to service. And if you keep up on the ball joints and maintain them, you're not going to have any problems. I haven't yet. Knock on wood. Alright, so anyways, so I bought this axle out of a junkyard. Well, out of a private junkyard. It was totally rusty and nothing on it, totally gutted. That was $900 just for the bare axle housing, really. It did have all the knuckles and everything, so that's cool. It's got some, obviously, reverse cut, fit cut Revolution gears, I think. They are 538, and those were $300. This also needs a install kit, so this has a Yukon gear install kit for $200. And the locker, same as the rear, believe it or not, welded, free, saving money. Front lockers are a touchy subject for a lot of people. A lot of people think that's totally required, and I think for some people it is, but for me it's not. I have hubs and full hydro, and it's a trailer queen, so it doesn't really matter, and it's just one less part to break. Sure, it puts more stress on everything in the meantime, but I had an ARB before, and I had so many problems with it trying to keep air in it, and I just was tired of being left stranded on the trail with no locker. So it's hard to beat the foolproof reliability of a welded diff. They are just spooled all the time, solid and locked. So just like the rear axle, I don't install gears in the axles. That's the one thing I don't do. So that was $400 to install the gears into this axle. This Artec truss, so not the ram mount, but just the truss, is $359. As you can see, this has a shave kit as well from Ballistic Fab. That's super unique in my opinion. You don't see those on the front 60s very often. So the diff cover and the shave kit was $489. This axle also has a Wide Open Designs Forged 1350 chromoly yoke on it, and that was $130. This axle has chromoly shafts from Yukon. They are 35 spline inner and outer, so nice upgrade there. Those are $320 times 4, so $1280 for chromoly axle shafts all the way, or inner and out. But that does not come with your U-joints. So you gotta have some nice U-joints in there, otherwise those will blow up and you blow your shafts anyways. So this has some Spicer non-greasable U-joints, $40, and in my opinion, you have to have a trail spare. That is just so important. So times 3 is $120. This axle has both drive flanges and locking hubs. That's going to be a weird one for most people, I imagine. Everybody else I know either runs hubs, or most people run drive flanges at this point. But with the welded diff, I wanted the ability to unlock the front end, you know, so I wanted hubs. So I originally tried the Yukon hardcore hubs, and I hated them. They never wanted to unlock. They ended up breaking. And so at that point, I was pretty much running drive flanges anyways, so I bought a set of drive flanges after that. Those drive flanges are Crane 35 spline drive flanges for $229. But after I got those, I still wanted the hub ability to unlock. So I also bought a set of worn 35 spline locking hubs for $350. And so now I run the hub on the driver's side, which is the side that I can see. I can tell if it's in a bind or something. And then I run the drive flange on the passenger side. And then I carry a spare drive flange with me if that hub does blow up. So that way now I can put it in two-wheel drive. I can unlock my one hub and we can drive around like we're in normal two-wheel drive, which is super cool. Ball joints are Moog ball joints for $142. Front wheel bearings, because when I got this thing, it had been sitting forever and was rusty and gross, so I had to do all new wheel bearings. So that kit is $70 times 2 for $140. Brakes, you gotta have brake pads and calipers. So calipers were $120 and $20 for pads. I did reinforce the stock knuckles, as you can see. That's one benefit to this specific model Dana 60. The Kingpin 60s, you have to do aftermarket knuckles. In my opinion, it's a must, because the stock knuckles just break. They're so fragile. These knuckles are pretty beefy, as you can see. And so I just reinforced them and made them double shear with this giant 3/4 inch plate. So I'm gonna put that at $50. And then lastly is this Artec ram mount for the steering. You could have done that cheaper, but it's like a double trussing the axle, so you're not gonna bend it. And I really didn't want this Dana 60 to bend. So that's this Artec universal ram mount. This is a cut to fit one yourself, $369. So that brings our grand total for the Dana 60 to $5,598 for one axle. Pretty crazy. All right, well, while we're here, let's jump to the steering. So the steering, I have a full PSC full hydro steering kit. They sell a basic full hydro steering kit. This is I'm not sure, it's the big one. It's the one for 40 to 46 inch tires. That kit right now is $2,110. It doesn't come with the pump, hoses, well, some of the hoses, not all of them, or the reservoir. So you have to buy their pump and reservoir kit. So the high flow pump and then like the Hydro Boost reservoir, which is super nice. Highly recommend. $701 for those two. And then a bunch of custom hoses. So, you know, the high pressure line, you need to have those made. They sell the line for your long ones down to your ram, but there's some, you know, some random fittings here or there. So I'm gonna put that at $300. That brings the total for the steering to $3,111. All right, so that covers the chassis as well as the 1-ton axles. So let's move on to suspension, because you gotta have something to bolt the axles to. First things first is the Iron Rock Off-Road ZJ specific cross-member link mounts. So I think these are really important if you're building a ZJ specifically, because unibodies do unibody things, and they need to be tied together in order for the links to not rip off. You know, I would never really trust just welding link mounts to the frame. So the front cross member is the Iron Rock Off-Road 3-link cross member for $350. The rear cross member is the Iron Rock Off-Road triangulated 4-link cross member of $469. Now keep in mind that that front cross member I have pretty much cut apart and customized completely at this point. Like it's not the same cross member anymore, but it was at one point. So I didn't know how to price that one. Links, so you gotta have links. There's a lot of links on this build, as you can see. I run 2-inch quarter wall DOM tubing, upper and lower, front and rear. I think the rears might be a hair smaller than that just for clearance purposes, but that's it. So I priced that for $1,000 for the 6 quarter wall 2-inch DOM, and then for the 2 uppers in the rear, I put those at $200. That's just for the 2. And then lastly, you need all of the bungs, heims, misalignment spacers, jam nuts, you know, all of that stuff. I bought everything from Barnes. This has been a couple years now, but I remember that price being right around $1,000 for the whole front and rear of the links. But I priced it out roughly today, and they've gone up a little bit, so you know, $1,500 or so. All right, let's talk about shocks. This is the big pretty ticket item here. So these are 16-inch, no, these are 14-inch 2.5 Fox Performance Series coilovers with the external reservoir. They also have custom hoses and then locked 2.0 bump stops. The front Fox 2.5 coilovers with springs are $787, and you gotta have 2 of them. So that's $1,574 for the front shocks. The rear are 2.5 Performance Series 16-inch shocks with the DSC adjusters. So a little bit longer, a little bit nicer, but pretty much the same shock. Those with springs are $921 a shock, so $1,842. The front bump stops, so these are the locked off-road 2.0 threaded bump stops. So they are adjustable, which is kind of cool. A little gimmicky in my opinion at this point. I used to think they were really cool, but for the most part, those are kind of a set it and forget it thing. You're not changing those ever. You build it at bump, bump is bump. But anyways, that kit is $480 for 2. And then the rear, I went with just the pin style, so it's just a can. And those are $460 for 2. As far as the sway bar goes, it does have a TK1 Racing sway bar. Highly recommended. What an incredible part. Completely changed the way the vehicle drives. That kit, this is the Ultra 4 sway bar kit, and it's $499. As for the shock mounts, these are all just, you know, custom tabs that I did myself. I did have a whole bunch of tabs cut out by a buddy on a plasma cutter, but nothing crazy, you know. Most of the front tabs I made just with an angle grinder, but you do gotta have the plate for that, so I'm gonna put that at $50 for the shock tabs. And then lastly is the limit straps. You do have to have limit straps, people. You gotta have them. The shock is not your limit strap. So limit straps are $30 a strap. You gotta have 4 of them, so $120. That brings our grand total for the shocks to $8,544. That's crazy. That's more than I thought it was gonna be. Tires and wheels. This is a big one. Tires have gone up a lot in price since I bought these, FYI. To the point where, like, I don't even know how I'm gonna replace them when they're bald. But, so, these are 42-inch by 17 IROX, Interco IROX Super Swampers. Right now they are going for $866 a tire, for a grand total of $3,484 to replace all 4. They are mounted on some 17-inch Raceline Monster aluminum beadlocks. Incredible wheel, super nice wheel. Those are $449 a wheel, and that's $1,796 for all 4. Expensive tire and wheel combo, but man, tires make all the difference, man. You have to spend the money on tires. All these guys are running cheap tires, cheap wheels, non-beadlocks. Even the DIY beadlocks, I ran those for a long time. And they totally work and get the job done. But man, what a difference going to the aluminum ones. Lighter, less broken parts, more power, you know, more balanced. They just roll nicer across the shop floor even. You can just tell the quality difference is there. So you do get what you pay for, but they hurt. And if that wasn't enough, it doesn't stop there, because I also have a second set for my spares and my sand tires. So these are 39.5 IROX that have been hot knifed, as you can see. I'm trying to shave as much weight as possible off of them. Those are $737 a tire, brand new. I did not pay that because I bought them pretty bald. I'm gonna value them at $1,000 for all 4 tires, okay? And then they are wrapped in some 17-inch Raceline Avenger beadlocks. So, same brand, slightly different model. These are the cheaper model, but to be honest, they seem really similar. They do weigh a hair less, which is a good thing for the dunes, but they're probably maybe a little less, they can probably take a little less abuse in the rocks, which is maybe why they are cheaper and a little lighter. They're probably not as like beefy, you know. Anywho, so the four 17-inch Raceline Avenger beadlocks are $3.99 a wheel for $15.96 for all 4. So that brings the grand total for tires and wheels for the Jeep to $7,856. That one, again, the spares, you know, the dunes tires, I don't know if you want to include that in your budget, but I know that I brought the Jeep to the dunes one time on the 42s and I kind of hated it. So I definitely wanted some smaller tires for the go fast, you know, but and a spare is a good thing. But you could probably, if you don't plan on going to the dunes, you could probably cut the 4 of those out of your budget and just account for one more 42 and you'd be good. All right, we're getting down to it now. Let's talk about the engine. This does have an LS swap, as you all know. So those aren't cheap either, as much as people want to pretend they are. I'll be the first to tell you it's not, it adds up. So to start, you gotta have the engine. So the Junkyard 5.3 LS goes for $800 roughly. Admittedly, I did get this from a buddy for about half that, but you're not gonna find that deal, especially not today. I think $800 is a fair number for that. And then it's a junkyard motor, so you don't know what's inside of it, so you have to go through it. So I did some BTR gasket kits. That's the whole engine essentially for $204. I did a brand new rear main cover because it's easier than replacing the rear main seal out of the old cover. $50. I did the aluminum barbell mod. That's important in my opinion to keep your oil pressure nice and high. $10, those are super cheap. I did a brand new Mellings oil pump, $150. New timing chain, $50. I did LS7 BTR lifters. Wanted to keep the lifters nice and quiet, $200. I did a brand new truck style water pump, $100. All new sensors. I didn't actually do the math. I'm gonna guess about $300. This fancy Jegs intake and fuel rail kit, that's all one kit. That is $420. A bit unnecessary for sure, but man, the stock intake just looks so ugly. And after you spend all this money on the LS swap, the last thing you want is when you pop the hood to see that ugly stock intake. So, I mean, it's worth it for that and that alone. Custom intake tube and filter. I'm gonna put that at $100. Just some random silicone fittings and then the giant K&N filter. Stainless V-band block hugger headers, $300. I actually bought 2 sets of headers. My first ones did not fit. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw that whole fiasco. And then a full 2.5-inch exhaust kit. I did not do stainless because I'm poor, $150. That comes with like a bunch of different size stuff, so that's super good. I did get a Kooks 3-inch muffler off of Marketplace for $100. I really like the sound of that. I would get another one. Injector O-rings, $20. That was just a nice thing to do while I had them out, you know, putting fresh O-rings in them. Standalone wire harness and a simple fuse box. So I did admittedly do this myself. I took the stock harness, cut it down, made my own fuse box standalone. However, I'm not entirely sure I would do it again. It was a surprising amount of work, and I made a couple small mistakes that I then had to chase my tail on for multiple days trying to figure out why the stupid thing wouldn't run. And you can buy one of these for like $100. It's just not worth the time and effort in my opinion unless you're really good at it. Like now that I've done it, I would maybe do another one because I know what I'm doing a little more, but it's not worth unless you're just looking to learn, I guess, right? So anyways, $100 for that. I spent $40 on the fuse box anyways, not to mention all of the loom and stuff, so I don't think it's worth doing yourself. Flashed the stock computer, so this thing's not on Holly or anything like that. It's got the stock computer. I just took it and had it flashed to remove the VATs and stuff. That was $100. And then because it's on a stock computer, it's not self-learning or anything, so you do have to go and have it tuned. and that was $700 for a custom dyno tune. Made a world of a difference though. It runs phenomenal. It's like the best running LS swap I've ever seen. It runs amazing, makes a ton of power. He found like an extra 50-60 horse when he did it. DAC Tunes up in Chehalis, guys, go check them out. Motor mounts, gotta have beefy, nice motor mounts. I'm actually using the Rough Stuff transmission crossmember bushing like kit as my motor mounts. They're super beefy. Those are $65. A brand new alternator, $180, and this one might be controversial. I think you have to have two of them. That's a part that goes out always at the worst time possible, and you don't want that to happen. So I carry a spare alternator brand new in the box with me at all times. So $180 or $360 if you want to be prepared. To mount all the accessories is the OVERBUILT LS accessory kit, $200, and then the Mishimoto radiator. So this is a big Mishimoto, nice all aluminum radiator, and it actually comes, well, it doesn't come with, I had to buy it separately, but they have a fan and shroud kit to go with it, and it fits beautifully. It all works great, keeps the engine nice and cool. Need plug wires. So I did some Dragonfire performance plug wires in AC Delco spark plugs, and then some plug wire boots. So you gotta have those if you're running these aftermarket headers. Otherwise, you're gonna burn through plug wires. I also keep all of the stock plug wires in a Ziploc bag in the back, just in case I burn one up. Anywho, $130 for all of that. New belt. And again, you gotta have another one. That's another one. You don't want to blow a belt, especially with full hydro steering. You're just screwed then. So 2 belts, $80, and then a starter, brand new starter, $180. So that's everything for just the LS swap. Okay, not including tranny, T-case, drive lines, any of that crap, fuel. Just the motor and the radiator, $5,649. So anyone who says you can LS swap for $800 is lying to you, because it's not. It's much more expensive than that. All right, transitioning to the interior here to talk about the transmission, because you gotta have something to mate to the LS swap. So I'm running a 5-speed, as you can see, which is super awesome. I think I would say 90% of people who LS swap a wheeler do a automatic transmission behind it, because they're thinking Ultra 4 car, automatic transmission, yeah. And I just, man, I like my manual, dude. It just feels so good to shift gears and work the clutch and be able to feel, you know, you just feel so much more one with the vehicle, as corny as that sounds. Anyways, this is a GM NV3500 transmission. So again, I think anybody who does do a manual swap LS typically goes for the 4500 in the wheeler world, because they think it needs to be strong enough. But the 4500s kind of shift like garbage, and they're big, they're heavy, they're crazy expensive. So I wanted to try the 3500 first before I went down that path. If it broke, then I would, you know, reevaluate. It's been over a year now. She's fine, and I'm beating the piss out of her. So I think you guys are sleeping on the NV3500s. Anywho, $300 for that transmission. I think that's fair. It's about what I see them online for. Mine actually came with the LS. I got it as like a combo. You do need a new clutch. So this has a Luke clutch in it for $275. Gotta have a flywheel, $100. Flywheel bolts, I had to buy some nice aftermarket bolts, $40. Pilot bearing, $30. Throwout bearing, $50. Master and slave cylinder, so this is $200. And then I actually did a custom braided, steel braided with AN fitting lines and adapters for that, because I didn't want the plastic stuff melting. That was $150. And then lastly is I put a new shift tower in it, so the shifter feels nice and tight, for $50. So the transmission is $1,195 total. All right, and since we're already inside and this seat I'm sitting in is so comfortable, I'm not gonna get out, and we're just gonna transition straight into the transfer case. So I think this specific part is the most important part on the whole vehicle as far as its capability goes, especially being behind the manual transmission. And that is the Atlas 4-speed transfer case. Gotta have the gearing in order for the manual to work in the rocks. Even in the snow, anywhere really. I mean, even just driving it down the street, it is way better with a 4-speed transfer case, because I can put it in just the underdrive engaged, and it feels like it's got so much more power. whole lot of nonsense to say get a 4-speed Atlas. They'd change your life. $3,802. To go with the Atlas and the 1 tons is some drivelines. You gotta have nice aftermarket drivelines. I think I have broken more drivelines than anybody on the planet before I finally spent the money and upgraded to these nice beefy 1350 JE reel drivelines. These are the heavy wall U4 double cardan. These ones are a little tricky to find the price on, and because I admittedly bought them used on Marketplace, and then I just re-sleeve them myself to change the length. But I think that they're about $1,000 a piece. So that's $2,000 plus, again, this is a part that in my opinion you have to have a spare of. It is so important to have a spare, at least rear driveline, to get you home. So $3,000. All right, one thing I almost forgot to cover is the fuel cell and that whole setup, just the whole fuel system. So this is a Jazz 20-gallon aluminum fuel cell. I bought this on Marketplace for $100, but brand new they are $279, and I recommend buying new because mine had a crack in it that I had to weld up. I also paired it with a Jazz quick fill kit, so that gives you the fitting for the tank as well as the hose and the cap up top here. That is $347. As far as the fuel pump setup goes, I'm running it's a bit of a weird setup here. I've got a Genrite TJ, ZJ, XJ, whatever, just Jeep fuel pump mounting ring. I've had that for a long time, way back before I did the LS swap. That's how I mount the stock like pump hat in the tank. Attached to that is a Wolbro 255 fuel pump. Those are $150. As far as the fuel pressure regulator, I'm running a Corvette style regulator with AN fittings. Those are really cheap, like 80 bucks. That's why everyone does them, because they technically get the job done. And then I've got steel braided AN fittings and lines. Not the whole length. I did reuse the factory fuel line, like the hard line that runs the length of the frame rail. So I've just got steel braided AN line to and from attaching to that. So I put that at $200. That brings the grand total for the fuel system, I guess you'd call it, to $1,355. All right, home stretch here, ladies and gentlemen. We are to the interior and chassis, okay? So let's see. We have a whole bunch of 1 3/4 120 wall Dom tubing for the roll cage, the rock sliders, the back half, I mean the front half. It's a tube chassis. Let's be honest with ourselves. There's a little bit of frame rail left, but it's a tube chassis. I'm going to value that at $2,500 for all that tube. It might be more, it might be less than that. It's hard to justify because I always just kind of buy 2 sticks at a time. And then use what I got, and when I run out, I go and buy more, which is not the most cost-effective way to do it, but it hurts your wallet a little less at the time. So I don't have a hard number. I don't know exactly how much tube I've used, but that would get you close, I'm pretty sure. As far as the seats go, I have 2 of these Corbeau Baja XP seats. I just got these. I haven't even used them yet, and I'm so excited to use them. These are $800. In the back seat, currently I have a tore apart bench. I'm in the middle of some stuff right now. Ignore that. But what I plan to do is run my old front seats in the back. So I'd have some bucket seats back there too. Those are just the Summit in-house brand seats, and those are $400 for the pair. Pretty affordable. If you're looking for a cheap bucket seat, you can find those on Marketplace for like $100 almost anywhere. Battery mount, you gotta have somewhere to put your battery. So I have a Ballistic Fab battery mount box. It's all metal, super nice, and that is welded behind the back seat. That is $60. Pretty sweet custom glow shift gauge cluster. I made all of this, but the gauges themselves are $300. Pretty cool little things. Harnesses, you gotta have harnesses in my opinion, especially if you're doing really technical stuff or going to the dunes. It doesn't matter if you have a roll cage. If you aren't strapped in to said roll cage or to the seat, when you roll, you're gonna hit your head on the cage, and that hurts just as much as the ground. I've had friends go to the hospital over that. So you have to be strapped in, and no one makes better straps, in my opinion, than PRP. So this has PRP 5.3 harnesses, and I actually have some in the back as well. They're $134 a harness. So that times 3 is $402, and I need to buy another one. Steering wheel. So I have a PRP steering wheel with a MPI quick detach steering wheel hub. The quick detach hub's not needed at all until you have bucket seats, and then you can't get in anymore, and it makes getting in way, way, way easier. So the steering wheel is $150, and the MPI quick release hub $160. My spare tire strap is a speed strap, 3, triple, whatever you want to call it, spare tire strap. Those are $69. Onboard air. I have a Smittybilt air compressor. This is like one of those ones that come in a little bag that most people like take out and hook up to the battery. I have mine hard mounted behind the seat, and hardwired, so I can just flip the switch and turn it on and air up my tires. That was $150. The chase light, you gotta have tail lights, and when I did the whole back half here, there wasn't really anywhere else to put tail lights anymore, so we went with the chase light up top. Sprite is the brand, whatever that means. $120, would buy again. Moving back to the front, I have a Smittybilt 10K synthetic rope wireless winch. So this winch technically wasn't wireless or synthetic when I bought it. I've just slowly upgraded it, but they sell it like that nowadays, and that is $700 for that setup. On top of that is my headlights. I have these China designs. That's what we call them. They're just Amazon knockoff Baja designs. They are not as bright as Baja designs, I'm sure, but they are only $100, and that's why I have them and not Baja designs. All right, last couple things on the interior in here. I do have an aftermarket center console, just because with all of the shifters from the Atlas and everything, the factory console doesn't fit anymore. So this is a cheapo Amazon one, $50. And then for the heater, I did ditch the factory heater core because it was massive, heavy, and obnoxious, and I replaced it with a little tiny Jegs auxiliary heater. Comes with this nice switch here. Turn it on. Oh, you need to have the key on. Turns on. It's got the defroster kit and leg warmers down low. What did that cost me? $219 for that. So there are a few things in here that I'm not even including, my rugged radio and mount, my double den touchscreen stereo. I wanted that for my maps and stuff, seat heaters and switches and wiring, and I'm not counting any of that. I just felt like they weren't totally necessary, but a heater is. You gotta have a heater. Gotta be able to defrost your windows. So that's the interior, and that brings the grand total for the interior. Ready for this one? $6,180. I mean, I guess that's not just the interior, it's more chassis, because I counted the roll cage stuff in that too. But yeah, that adds up quick. That'll nickel and dime you to death for sure. All right, last couple little things here. I just have this under random because I wasn't sure what to put them under. I do have an upgraded brake master and booster. This is just the it's a late model ZJ booster and a double diaphragm booster, and then a 1-ton Dodge master cylinder. Everybody does that upgrade. I have that put at something that I can't see because my printer sucks, so I'll just put that in the, pop it up right here. And then I have long as hell steel braided brake lines. They are way longer than they need to be. My brake lines could use a good little refurbish, but I did have those custom made, $300. You do have to have extended brake lines when you run in long travel stuff. And then nuts and bolts. So every single nut and bolt on this whole entire Jeep at this point has been replaced. I pretty much use grade 8 bolts only. I can't even count how many trips I've done to and from the parts, Wilco and stuff, getting bolts. So I'm gonna have that at $500. Bolts are pretty cheap, but like I said, every single bolt on the Jeep has been replaced. So I don't know, that might be high, it might be low. I think that's a rough estimate. So we're gonna put the randomness at about $1,000. All right, so that about covers it all. And if I add it all up, you ready for this? $50,000 $434 for the Jeep. 50 G's. It's a lot of money. It's the cost of a new Razor. Shit, it's the cost of a new truck. And keep in mind that that doesn't even include consumables, you know, or tools. I didn't include the welder or the tube bender. I can't tell you, I've spent a small fortune on flap discs and cutoff wheels. I'm not including any of that. Weld gas, welder tips, lots of money there. But I'm just kind of assuming that if you're building something, hopefully you have most of that. And tools are a weird one for me because you get to keep those after it's all said and done. You know, I do side projects all the time and the tools make me money. So that's the cost. That's what it takes to build one of these. So what do you think? Is that more than you thought? Less than you thought? It's more than I thought it cost. But like I said, I think, you know, I had a number in my brain based on what I had paid, and I get parts at cost. So it's a little bit easier to swallow than that. Pretty expensive for sure. And that's just the Jeep. Like, that doesn't even include, you gotta have a tow rig to tow it, you know. So then you gotta buy a diesel truck. You gotta have the flatbed to tow it on, because you can't drive this on the street. You're gonna get in trouble. So you gotta buy a flatbed. And then if you want to go, you know, to King of the Hammers or cross country and, you know, you gotta have somewhere to sleep. So then you gotta buy an enclosed trailer or something of the sort to sleep in, you know. And then the maintenance and parts and all that stuff. It's expensive. It's an expensive hobby, I guess I'd say. It's a lifestyle, really, is what it is, you know, because to the people who don't get it, they're gonna think I'm nuts. And to the people who get it, they get it, you know, and they're doing the exact same thing. So, you know, sometimes I think maybe I should have held off on building it till a little later in life. But then again, I'm already slowing down. I'm not even 30. And I couldn't imagine putting in the hours that I put in to build this 10 years from now. I just don't think I would have been able to do it, to finish it. You see a million of these projects abandoned, and I finished mine. The thousands and thousands and thousands of man hours to build it, it's a lot easier to do that in your early 20s than it is to do that later on. So yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much about it. Let me know in the comments how much you guys think you've spent on your wheeler, and let me know if you think I'm fucking insane for spending this much on mine. Thanks for watching. Huge thanks again to IHood. Go check out, get yourself a heated coat, and I'll see you in the next one.